All right, looks good right there. Let me slide this down a little bit. All right, so let's see what we're at now. I just went ahead and pressed new stator shaft bushings in the pump, rear stator and front stator support bushings. That's good on bushings now. Also got the front seal out of the pump body, which is obviously right here where the converter rides, and we're about to drive this front pump bushing out as well. So this was the front and rear stator bushing here, these two, and then of course the rear seal here. So we're going to find the basically the best way to get bushings out is to see if you can find where they're put together. They're not a solid piece usually. They're usually like they got like a tongue and groove mating point to where it comes back around to itself. If you can find that, you can usually split it at that point really easily. If not, then you just have to take a crack at it somewhere and work with it. So this one here, I actually see the mating point in it. So I'm going to take my small chisel, wherever it is, right here, and cave it in right at the mating point. And as you can see, if you catch it right at the mating point, this is what you get. You'll knock both ends loose, and then you'll be able to just knock it out really easily. So I'm gonna knock it a couple more times, and it'll come out just like that. See how the ends split loose in it? So that one's trash. We got our new one here. This is called a Durabond bushing. It's white inside because it's Teflon lined, and that's where your torque converter the neck of your torque converter rides right there. So this one goes in from the inside, and the way I usually like to do this one, sometimes you can get it started by hand by just pressing it down, and then I use a bushing driver that's just a little bit bigger than the hole. Doesn't really matter, and then just tap it in. And if your bushing drivers are made of like a soft material like these are like a real soft aluminum, you can actually knock it flush with the pump surface, and it won't nick the pump surface. And then what I like to do to get it the extra, see, that's flush to the pump surface, but that's not how it's supposed to be, because the snowflake ring that is in the pump rotor needs to go down in there. So we need to get one size smaller. I believe it's this one here, and it will actually fit down in there, and it will knock it down below flush to the next line where it should be. So this pump half is done. It could use clean before we start putting everything together, but it's good for the time being. So let's put our bushing drivers up just for right now. And that right there. Alright. So now we need to take this half of the pump apart, the pump body, I guess, and we'll clean it. So that means we're removing the boost valve. So I need my other pair of snap ring pliers here. the internal ones, they squeeze in. And we'll pull this boost valve out. That's the boost valve snap ring. The boost valve itself with the boost valve bushing. That's the boost valve bushing. Of course, everybody calls the whole thing together as a boost valve. And then you'll get your pressure regulator springs. There's 2 of them. And your pressure regulator valve is in there too, but it sometimes doesn't want to come out. So I get my magnetic screwdriver and wiggle it out. That's your PR valve, your pressure regulator valve. So we're going to set these aside because, not necessarily the boost valve, because we're going to get a new boost valve. This is probably a 471, a .471, 471 thousandths boost valve. The Transgo kit that we're going to use goes to a 500 boost valve, which is a 1/2 inch, .5000. So it'll boost the line pressure a little bit. So we'll set those aside. We're not going to use that boost valve again, but we're going to use the PR valve. That's going to go back in. That gets reused. This pump filter that I just pulled out of the side is very important. If that blows out, you won't have any line pressure to blow it all out. So that O-ring, the new screen, that's all in your rebuild kit. Now as we go on around, we're going to find the converter shift valve. This is what the lockup solenoid actually exhausts or pressurizes. So same deal as the boost valve. Get the snap ring, and it's got a little plate on the top. It's got a plate with a hole in it. That's always on top, right up under the snap ring. And then the converter shift valve looks just like this. Okay, and then you're gonna have a couple springs in there. It's got an inner spring and an outer spring, and that is all the valves that are in this pump. Now we have a relief check ball that is, let's see, where is the relief ball? It is right here. It's dead top, I guess directly 180 degrees off of the boost valve area. So it's got a huge spring. The spring is very high tension. So what I like to do is I get my big screwdriver, turn it like this, and it's got a pin. And once you relieve the spring pressure, you can push the pin down. So let me see, my next size down screwdriver. I usually put it against me and push in, and then push the pin down the best I can. It's a very tough spring to work with, but the pin will drop out, or you might be able to just push it out with your fingernail. That's the pin. Almost looks like a screw with no threads. And then the big spring, this is the high tension spring that was holding it in. And just this really big check ball. That's your pressure relief. So we're going to set that aside as well. So the pump now is empty. There's nothing in it. So we can go ahead and clean it, and clean all the orifices in it and everything like that. And then we can put the converter valve back in. We can put the check ball pressure relief back in. Pretty much everything but the boost valve we can put back in it. We got a new one of these in the rebuild kit, so that's trash too. So I'm going to get our cleaning gun wherever I set it. Well, that's peculiar. Strange how this stuff goes missing sometimes when you just had it too. Oh, here it is, hiding from me back here. Alright. Let's plug it up. Alright. And we'll put some more fluid in it. Alright, so let's get this pump cleaned up. Pump and pump body, or pump cover, whatever you want to call it. Apologize if the compressor kicks on. I know it's probably about to. There's a couple captured check balls you need to make sure you spray out real good too. Apologize for all the noise. So, got the pump body clean and the pump cover. So everything's clean. All the little passages are sprayed out. Everything looks good there. So last thing I do ever on these is the stator shaft sealing rings. That's what seals it to the reverse input drum. So once it's all together and everything like that, then we'll go ahead and do that. So right now I'm going to pick the pump seal off that seals it to the case. That's this big O-ring. Alright, and I'm going to get, let's see, where is the pin? I need the pin and the tiny spring and the pump slide springs. So there's a dual spring set up here. This is for the pump slide. Excuse me, we need that. This is the pump pivot pin, and then there's a tiny little spring that goes on the tip of it that goes down in a hole in the pump cover, and I'll show it to you in a second. But this is always a point that you got to look at and make sure there's no grooves or anything in this pin, because it actually has sealing purposes of it too. So it's got to be perfectly smooth. This one's good because it's a major pivot point, plus like I said, it's responsible for sealing off the passage around the pump slide too. So alright, so what we got now, we need to spray our pump part out. So that's the slide springs, the small spring, and the slide pin. So I go ahead usually and drop my tiny little pin spring down in the hole where it goes, which is right, let's see, right here. That hole right there. It goes way down in there. But we're not going to put the pin in yet because it makes life a whole lot harder if you do it right now. So, the best way that I do it, let me get our kit out. Alright, our pump kit. Cut the top open here real quick. So it comes with the tiny little O-ring that goes in the back of the slide, the snowflake, the 2 vane rings, the vanes themselves, and then there's the Teflon slide seal and the rubber spacer. Now these things are very, very, very tiny. This is the rubber round spacer. It looks like just a piece of round rubber stock. And then this orange thing is a Teflon. It's just a chip of Teflon basically. And they go side to side like this. And they go against the slide, and that's what cushions the slide against the side of the pump. So, and then of course we got our vanes here. So first thing first, we're going to take our pump slide. Alright, we're going to put our O-ring in the back side of it. There's a groove around this back side, and it just sets down in there. And then it's got this thin steel ring that goes over top of it. And sometimes, depending on how loose it is, this one's pretty loose, so we'll have to put just a dab of trans gel in there just to hold it and the steel ring in so that we can turn it upside down. So we'll go ahead and we'll put this in face down just like this with the O-ring and steel ring that we just put in on the back side of it. Alright, while we're doing that, we can go ahead and take our snowflake, our vane spacer, whatever you want to call it. I've always called it the snowflake. I've heard other people call it the same thing. And one of your 2 pump stator rings. Pump rotor rings, I'm sorry. So this is your pump rotor, and you'll notice on one side these things are, well, I'll just show you the other side first.